All right, I wasn't going to bring this one up again, but as of now, I'm not even sure if I'm going to release this. We're going to have to see how we're feeling about this. You already know how I feel about this pointless main event at UFC 302. I hated it from the start, and I hate it just as much now, or almost just as much now. We've obviously been inundated with delusional Poirier fans, thinking you can get this done, yourself included. I'm playing, of course. It's
true though.
The thing is, though, this fight's weird, yeah, because it's kind of put me in a little bit of an awkward position, because not only do I not like the fight, but being quite honest with myself, I don't really like either of these guys either. But like, I'm sick of sitting around and waiting on Makhachev to just fight a just contender. Partially, I have to admit, because he might be that good where there possibly isn't somebody good enough to step up to him. And I don't really like Poirier, who I think is a bit of a phony. I think he's a little bit of a simp. I've talked about Poirier enough times. I've never really cared for his personality as much as I love him as a fighter. If I'm being real though, having thought about it, I actually kind of want Poirier to win, just because I think Islam fans are the worst human beings on the face of the planet. Like, it's got to the point where tuning into Twitter now has become an arduous process for me, because Makhachev fans, by and large, are just insufferable to deal with. But the reason why I'm bringing this up again, and we will get to this we'll keep this relatively brief, I suppose. Poirier has recently come out in the last week and spoken about the possibility that he might retire, whether he wins or loses. So has this changed your view on the fight at all?
I will say that hearing retirement talk, yeah, it does change my view on it. Even though I'm still, hoping against hope that he pulls out a miracle, but when you have somebody whose eyes are looking towards the end of the game, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to finish the race, and that doesn't mean that they win or they lose. They just want to finish, and that's how you get finished. Most people who are in their finale fight, they're not expected to win those fights. And I mean, we just saw it with Korean Zombie. He went out on the shield, but he went out. I mean, we talked about it earlier about Robbie Lawler and Nico Price. That Nico Price looked like he kind of gave that to him a little bit. But most of the time, when a fighter's towards the end, their goals are a little bit different. It's not necessarily to win, it's to survive. And you cannot go against Islam Makhachev hoping to survive, because you're just going to lose in spectacular fashion. So that sounds bad to me. That sounds like a horrible omen, in my opinion. But I don't know if Dustin is different after going through what he went through after losing to Gaethje. The dark days that he went through. His daughter's going to be at this one for the first time, and maybe she's there because
I love that as well.
Maybe she's there to see him, walk that last walk. But I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It sounds bad. It really sounds bad. It sounds like he's just trying to make it through the fight so he can say, that's it for me. But I don't know. It doesn't give me any warm and fuzzies. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Like for me, it was like if I wasn't convinced that this was a stupid fight and a terrible idea and a waste of time, then him coming out and say that has kind of just punctuated it for me now. It's kind of confirmed it for me. I found the timing of it to be very concerning as well. And it's honestly got me wondering what's facilitated him to say it so close to the fight. Because there was no mention of it in the weeks leading up to it. It was very much, oh, I'm going to beat this guy. He's underestimating me. There was all that, which is exactly what you want to hear. Whether you're a Poirier fan or not, if you're a Poirier fan, that's obviously what you want to hear, that he believes in himself, that he can do it. And if you're a neutral, you definitely want to hear that, because you're like, right, you need him to come in there believing he can win that fight, for him to have any chance of winning that fight. So it kind of makes me wonder what has led to suddenly it feels like a massive U-turn, in that he's suddenly just gone, you know, actually I might quit whether I win or I lose. Like, it makes me feel like maybe something happened in the background. Maybe the camp was especially hard on him this time, the quick turnaround. Maybe something's happened in his personal life where he's just like, you know what, I don't really want to be doing, because he has mentioned his family as well and how he wants to spend more time with his wife and with his kids. Has something happened that's shifted his, I don't know, his mood or his focus or his priorities, or it just felt very abrupt to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just the vibe that I got.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, we know how this goes. When somebody says the R word, that's usually when they go right off a fucking cliff. You know, it's like, again, how many times have we seen people retire in a positive way? It's, you know, it's a palm of our hand type thing.
Yeah, very, very
like,
few.
Very few people have walked into the sunset. You know, you've got Khabib, who retired way, way, way too early. So he's obviously an exception. And then you've got, obviously, you've got Robbie Lawler. It's very difficult to think of more examples of
it. Is
George St. Pierre.
I mean, and you know what?
Would be another one.
George St. Pierre, yes, the second time. The first time?
It was terrible. It looked...
I don't know if he won that fight.
He'd been battered. It looked like he got battered, and it was like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it felt horrible when he retired in that. You're right, he did. It did. I mean, he did technically retire on a win.
Technically.
It was like,
yeah.
Technically. It's just hard to name. So this talk, it's, as you said, you can't go with a mindset like that against a guy like Makhachev, who is improving constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not fighting, he's not under pressure of fighting every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
He's training, he's working. That's all these guys do.
Dude, they're only 3 years apart. They're only 3 years apart.
Crazy.
And
Makhachev is just not war tested. He's not, I don't mean war tested in the fact that he can't get into a war. It's more that he hasn't been, you know,
he hasn't had to be in one.
He hasn't been in war.
Yeah.
I mean, even the fight that Poirier had with Saint Denis, he beat him, but like he took a couple, you know, took a couple of shots in that fight. It wasn't like he walked out of there completely unscathed.
Yep. Had his back taken, jumped for some ill-advised guillotines.
Like, I feel like he's obviously taken this fight at the time that he is, because he's like, I'm not going to get this chance again. It's, as you said, it's opportunistic. And I think he's seeing it as, you know what, he's probably going to get a nice little payday from this.
Yeah, he's going to get broke off.
Probably going to be a couple of million.
Yeah. Because from a United States visibility standpoint, he's the A side. Even though holistically Islam has more followers on Instagram, yada, yada, yada. But people in the United States are going to be tuning in to see, can Dustin get it done? You know, it's the last dance type of thing. But so he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid handsomely. But I feel like he's hedging his self. Like, you know, if he loses, he's like, yeah, I lost. But, you know, it was my last foray. It was my last shot. So, you know, no big deal. It feels like that.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I think as a result, I think he's going to get destroyed. And I think he's going to retire. And I mean, the thing is that from a personal standpoint, I don't give a shit. But the thing is, I know that you do.
Yeah, I do.
I know that you do. And the thing is, it's like, as much of an arsehole as I can be, when it comes down to like my boys, I'm like, you know what? I still don't give a shit. No, I know he's your guy, and I know it's going to be heartbreaking for you to finally see him fuck off, but
yeah,
that is what I think is ultimately going to
happen. I would rather him lose this way in a title fight than to lose to, if it were to be him losing to Benoit Saint Denis,
he's been around in the UFC since he was 21.
Yeah.
He's another one. He was a young buck who got in there early.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on the ground. As much as I don't like the guy, it's more because it's just his personality rubs me up the wrong way. I respect him. I respect him as a professional fighter, and I respect the grind that he's gone through from when he entered the organization to now. He's always been hardworking, and he's always taken great fights, and he's always had great fights. And eventually that takes its toll, and you feel like you are kind of... He's an old 35-year-old.
Yeah.
He's a war battered 35-year-old. He's not a Makachev 32-year-old who's like barely had any damage. The damage is clocked up. So
yep,
this could be the end.
Could be.